He just got left off the list again, and Packers fans are furious about it. Green Bay just handed out another massive contract this week, but two names Packers fans have been begging to see extended are still sitting there with nothing. No new deal, no security, nothing. And with training camp just days away, the clock is running out for both of them. One of these two players might not even get his deal done before the season starts. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're also going to hear an Aaron Rodgers story that absolutely nobody expected, something that's been building quietly behind the scenes for 3 years and just became public for the first time. So let's get into it. Let's start with the news that's got everyone talking. The Green Bay Packers and defensive tackle Devonte Wyatt have agreed to a 3-year contract extension worth $57 million. Break that down, and it comes out to roughly $19 million a year, which lands Wyatt at 18th among all defensive tackles in the league in average salary. On the surface, some fans are going to look at that number and think it's steep. But when you actually compare where it sits against the rest of the position, this looks like a really smart piece of business by the front office. That per-year number puts Wyatt in between Cameron Hayward, a future Hall of Famer who's now 37 years old and clearly in the back half of his career, and Osa Odigizwa, a player who Wyatt has simply outproduced. So if Wyatt is being paid like he's somewhere around the 10th or 11th best player at his position, and he's 28 years old, that is not an overpay. That's the kind of value teams dream about. And it's not just a gut feeling here. If you look at advanced metrics that measure which defensive tackles are the best combination of stopping the run and getting after the quarterback, Wyatt shows up in the upper tier, inside the top 5 at his position league-wide. That's the guy the Packers just locked up long-term. And here's the part that should really excite Green Bay fans. He's not the only one. Javon Hargrave, who Green Bay brought in this offseason, also grades out in that same elite range. That means the Packers are walking into this season with 2 genuinely excellent interior defensive linemen. Now, there is a catch, and it's a fair one to bring up. Both Wyatt and Hargrave have dealt with injury trouble over the last couple of seasons. Their snap counts haven't been what you'd want from difference makers at the position. Wyatt, remember, suffered a broken leg on Thanksgiving last season, and the Packers' defense visibly took a hit once he went down. So this extension isn't just a bet on talent. It's a vote of confidence that Green Bay believes he's going to come back from that injury at full strength. If he does, this contract could look like an absolute steal a year from now. If you're a Packers fan, drop a comment and tell me whether you think this is the right amount of money for Wyatt, or if you think Green Bay is taking on real risk here. So that's one deal wrapped up. But here's where it gets interesting, because this signing leaves 2 very significant names still without long-term security heading into camp. The first is tight end Tucker Kraft, who is entering the final year of his rookie contract, and by just about every measure, he has been an absolute bargain for this organization. The second is cornerback Keisean Nixon, who is also heading into a contract year. Let's talk about Kraft first, because this is the situation everybody wants resolved. Kraft is coming back from a torn ACL, and while there's still no firm announced date for when he steps back onto the practice field, the expectation around the building is that he'll be ready for Week 1 against Minnesota. Green Bay has already made moves this offseason to lock up other key pieces of this offense, handing out extensions to receivers Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Kraft is reportedly next in line, and general manager Brian Gutekunst has been pretty open that getting a Kraft extension done is a priority before the season kicks off. The market has actually already started to set itself. The Atlanta Falcons gave tight end Kyle Pitts a 3-year, $54 million extension, and shortly after that, Jacksonville locked up Brennan Strange for 3 years and $48 million. Kraft has a real case to land north of that, somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 to $20 million a year, which would put him firmly among the highest-paid tight ends in football. Some reporting even suggests a 4-year deal in the $70+ million range could be on the table. Whatever the exact figure ends up being, the Packers know exactly what they have in this kid. Since coming into the league as a 3rd-round pick in 2023, Kraft has developed into one of the most explosive playmakers at his position, ranking near the top of the league in yards after catch over the last 2 seasons. If Green Bay gets this deal signed before training camp opens, that's a huge sigh of relief for this offense. Then there's Keisean Nixon, and this one is a much murkier situation. Nixon is set to turn 30 next year, and there's a real argument that his best football might already be behind him. Unlike Kraft, there isn't the same urgency from fans to see him paid, and it's genuinely unclear whether Green Bay views him as part of the long-term plan at cornerback. Adding to the uncertainty, cornerback Valentine, who started 11 games opposite Nixon last season, is also heading into the final year of his own contract. So it's entirely possible that both of Green Bay's starting cornerback spots from a year ago walk into free agency at the same time next offseason if nothing changes. Let Let me know down in the comments. Do you want the Packers to bring Nixon back long-term, or is it time to move in a different direction at that position? And that ties directly into one of the biggest storylines heading into training camp. Who is actually starting at cornerback for the Green Bay Packers this season? Right now, Nixon and Valentine look like the incumbents by default, but their inconsistent play last year is a big part of why fans were begging the front office to add talent at that position, and they did exactly that. Green Bay used their top pick in this year's draft, a second-rounder, on cornerback Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. Cisse has reportedly turned heads early in the offseason program, and if he strings together a strong training camp and preseason, there's a real path for him to push his way into the starting lineup as a rookie by week 1. On top of that, don't sleep on Benjamin St. Juste, the 6'3" cornerback Green Bay brought in through free agency. St. Juste started 45 games during his time in Washington before spending last season buried on the bench in the Chargers organization. He brings a completely different size and skill set than anyone else in this cornerback room, and that alone could be enough to force his way into the lineup. This is genuinely one of the most wide-open position battles on the entire roster heading into camp. While we're on the topic of training camp questions, let's talk about running back, because this is another spot with real uncertainty behind the starter. Josh Jacobs is locked in as the lead back, and his off-field situation from earlier in the year appears to be fully behind him. But Green Bay still doesn't have a proven, established number 2 option behind him, and that's a problem they need training camp to solve. All eyes are going to be on Marshawn Lloyd. This feels like the year he finally stays on the field for a full season, gets into an actual regular season game, and turns into a real weapon in this offense. The big question is going to be how much the coaching staff lets him play in the preseason. Nobody wants to see him get hurt again, but at some point he needs real game reps to prove he can hold up. Green Bay is bringing 6 running backs into training camp this summer, so if it isn't Lloyd who wins that second job, someone else in that room is going to have to step up in a hurry. If you had to guess right now, comment below on which Packers position battle you're most locked in on watching once camp opens, and why. Now, let's get to the story I promised you at the top, because this one has absolutely nothing to do with football, and it might be the most heartwarming Packers-related news to come out all offseason. Aaron Rodgers recently posted photos on social media with the caption referencing another visit spent bonding with family, and the pictures show him together with his parents and other relatives. For years, Rodgers' estrangement from his family was one of the most talked about storylines surrounding him, going all the way back to when his brother Jordan brought that strained relationship into the national spotlight during his run on a reality dating show back in 2016. Ever since then, it became one more thing that got thrown at Rodgers by critics. He's difficult. He's disconnected from his roots. He doesn't value family. But according to reporting from Ian O'Connor, this reconciliation has actually been quietly building since 2023. Rodgers reportedly reconnected with his father for the first time in 9 years at a golf tournament that year. From there, he invited his parents to attend his induction into his high school's Hall of Fame just a few months back. And now, he's making this rebuilt relationship public for the first time. Honestly, regardless of how anyone feels about Rodgers as a player or a personality, this is the kind of story you want to see. It also lines up with something a lot of people have noticed about Rodgers in this later stage of his career. He seems more reflective, more at peace, more willing to look inward. You can hear it in the way he's talked about being reunited with head coach Mike McCarthy again. The two of them now on a path to likely finish out Rodgers' career together on the same team. And now you can see it in the fact that he's finally making room for the people who raised him. Let me know in the comments what your honest reaction is to this news. One last note before we wrap up. Keep an eye on the uniforms this year, because there's actually a fun wrinkle for week 1. The New York Jets are set to debut brand new all-white uniforms for their home opener, including a new white helmet, which means the Packers will be wearing green and gold on the road in New Jersey to open the season. There's also a chance Green Bay ends up in green again on the road in week 4 down in Tampa, since the Buccaneers have a history of going with white at home for those brutal midday kickoffs in the heat. Small detail, but if you're a fan who cares about how these matchups look on screen, that's a solid one to circle. So that's where things stand for the Green Bay Packers right now. One big extension done in Devonte Wyatt, 2 more still very much up in the air in Tucker Kraft and Keisean Nixon, a wide-open cornerback competition, a running back room looking for its second option, and a genuinely feel-good story off the field involving Aaron Rodgers and his family. Training camp is just around the corner, and there's a lot riding on how the next few weeks play out. If you enjoyed this breakdown, do us a favor and hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed here on Go Packer Hub with your notifications turned on so you never miss the next update as this season starts rolling. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.